So welcome, Majemu, and thank you very much for your video. I found it really insightful, and I thought it was a great example of how you do an MVP in practice. So everybody talks about it, but I loved your no-code solution to doing an MVP. Um, so the purpose of this now is to ask questions. So if anybody out there who's watched the video has any questions, please send them in and I'll ask them to Majemu. But to get the ball rolling, I'm going to kick off with a few of my own questions. So welcome, first of all, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad
Excellent.
to be here.
One of the things that I loved about your story was the way you approached it with no code. And you, as you said, it was just a very simple survey and then a form, and then it was kind of behind the scenes. One of the things that I always hear people push back is there's too much work. Like if we did that, we wouldn't be able to keep up with the volume of work. So how did you deal with that?
Okay, so the way we were able to deal with that is, so like I described during the talk, for us, it was quite straightforward, right? So all we just needed users to do was to fill the surveys. Then for each of the answers, we already attached weight. So it was somewhat a bit automated. So we didn't have to like manually have to go through all of the users' responses, and also it was already automated immediately. They fill the survey, their responses are gotten, and we can immediately, based on our calculations, just assign like a portfolio to them. So it wasn't really so much. What that did for us was it gave us room to be able to like work on our actual products, right? So while we're already testing the market, while we're already seeing how users would interact, getting feedback from users, on the side, our development team were already like working on the actual product. So instead of us just waiting till we have a full-fledged product, right? It just gave us room to be able to quickly go to the market fast, test, and from feedback we're getting, we're channeling it into the process we're using to build the actual product.
Excellent. Now, it's a great example of kind of doing it while you're building it in parallel. I loved it. Thank you. So as the talk title was, it's kind of you launched Now What? So you highlighted promotion. Can you give people some ideas of what were some of the techniques or ways that you promoted your product to try and get it out there? Because as you said, once you build it, nobody knows about it yet.
Yeah. So first thing we did was even before launch, we had a wait list, right? So we're able to like even before launch, just put out the value proposition. And because we are like an existing company, we already have like an existing user base. We have communities that we interact with and all. So what we just did was put out word about what we were planning to build, the value proposition, get people to sign up to join the wait list. And so from there, we kept on like interacting with them. So even while we were building, we didn't just acquire user sign up for wait list and just go MIA till when we were ready. So we kept on maintaining that line of communication. So by the time we were ready to launch the MVP, we already had people that signed up for the wait list. So it was just to, since they were already anticipating and waiting for that, so it was just to go back and, oh yeah, the product is ready. This is how you can use it and all. Then also, of course, our existing customers, we have like a Telegram community where we engage with investors or people that are interested in investing and all. So that was pretty much the channel we used to promote our MVP. And I mean, the numbers were quite encouraging, and that was what gave us the assurance that okay, we're quite on the right track.
Excellent. No, great to hear it went well. One of the things, and I've promoted this approach of the let's just test it out like a fake door and just try get a waiting list and people to sign up. And the pushback that I've gotten from people is we're spending all of this marketing effort and we don't have it yet. So how many people do you think you lost from the people who signed up for the waiting list, but then by the time you actually communicated again, you had lost those people? And do you think that's an issue?
Oh, yes, so it was actually an issue. And even after we actually launched the no code version, right? So from the feedback we're getting from users that were already using it, they were already putting their funds into it. And of course, there was no actual app where they can monitor their portfolio performance. And it was almost like, okay, so when are you guys launching the actual product? When can I start seeing my money grow? When can I start when it was actually, there was a bit of should I say issues there, but I mean, it all boils down to communication, and we like giving them an actual timeline that we were working with, that also by so time we're expecting to have launched the product and all. And of course, we're sending weekly reports on their portfolio performance, just to kind of like put their mind at ease that, oh, your money has not disappeared, right? So yeah, that was one of the ways we were able to like maintain proper communication to customers, like giving them timelines on when so it was kind of like we were building together, right? So they knew when they were expected to like be able to use the actual app. And yeah, so then in terms of numbers of people that signed up for the wait list, and so we already set like, should I say, metrics or benchmark. We wanted this number of people to sign up for our wait list, even though we're able to exceed that number. And we had a target of, because we know that it's definitely not everybody that signed up for the wait list would actually sign up for the product, right? So we already had that in mind, and also all we just did was set numbers that we felt were feasible, and that we felt hitting these numbers would help validate our idea and all. So that was how we weren't like over ambitious, right? So it was just us looking at, okay, once we hit this number, we know we've been able to validate our idea, and we're sure we're on the right track.
Great. So that actually was a perfect segue into my next question about metrics, yeah. Because you said it was kind of promotion and then metrics. So can you explain to people, like, I know you've kind of covered at a high level what your metrics were, but maybe go into a bit more detail. What were your metrics, and how did you decide on those metrics that they were the things that you needed to track?
Okay, so our major metrics were, first of users that get to fill the profiling questionnaire, right? So that's where we know we've kind of like, should I say, we've been able to attract them, we've been able to like bring them on board, right? The next was users that funded, right? So that's kind of like our activation metric. So for you to actually fund, so we were tracking that number. Then not just that, users that were repeat funders. So you didn't just fund once. So probably on a weekly basis, you kept funding or on a monthly basis and all. So that was kind of like how we were able to track retention in our own way. So those were like our major metrics that we were tracking. Guys that we were able to like sign up, that's just fill the profiling questionnaire. Then funding, right? So that was like our activation metrics. Then repeat funders, that was kind of like our retention metrics. So those were the metrics we used.
Excellent. And did you ever find, like, I love the story in Amazon where they had a team that were responsible for growing the products that were available on Amazon. And they found after a while, because their metric was just grow the number of products, that they were filling it with crap products. So it's the problem where sometimes chasing a metric can have negative consequences. So did you find that maybe, for example, you were pushing too much to get people to fill the profiling, but they weren't then making the step to funding? Did you have a drop off in that funnel that you needed to go back to and then start figuring out what to do?
Yeah, I think to some extent, yeah, we did. So, but what we just did was, so for users that filled the profiling questionnaire, we just expected, I think 60% to move on to being funders, right? But I think we're trending around 50 to 55%. So even though we're not necessarily able to hit the 60%,
that's pretty good.
mark, yeah. So we were like 50, 55%. Then for translating them from just funding ones to repeat funders, which actually is like our major, because transaction volume is like the major thing that we track. That's like our North Star metric. So we don't just want you to just fund one, we want you to keep using the product and all. So of course there was drop off at some point, right? We're not able to like, which I don't think it's always like it's ever the case, like 100% they're able to like get them to the next level and all. So yeah, definitely there were drop-offs at some point. So it was just yeah, sorry, just to chip in one more thing. So from the drop, because tracking the data and all, so it just helped us look at ways we can actually improve the numbers by channeling our marketing efforts to those, so we know how to personalize our message to users that we see dropping off along the user journey.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's a very rapid fire Q&A, but I really enjoyed your talk, so thank you very much for sharing it.